Welcome to the Modern Assyrian program on ANB SAT. My name is Carmen Morad. My special guest today is Supervisor Vito Chiesa of the Stanislaus County 2nd District. Vito Chiesa is a lifelong resident of Houston. He graduated from Houston High School, attended Modesto Junior College, and went on to graduate from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo with a Bachelor's of Science degree in agriculture. Vito works in a family farming operation with his parents, Mary and Araldo, and brother, Andrew. In addition to growing walnuts, almonds, and peaches, the family operates a commercial walnut hulling and drying business. Prior to being elected to the Board of Supervisors, Vito served the community as the president of the Stanislaus County Fair Board, as well as the president of the Stanislaus County Farm Bureau. He also served as a director for the Modesto Chamber of Commerce, state director for California Farm Bureau. He is currently in his third term as Stanislaus County Supervisor for District 2. Some of his other many responsibilities include serving as the past president of the California State Association of Counties, CSAC, commissioner of the Children and Families Commission, member of the Stanislaus Council of Government, STANCOG, Executive Committee and Policy Board, member of the California Partnership for the San Joaquin Valley, member of the San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority, alternate member of the Emergency Medical Services Board of Directors, member of the City of Houston Oversight Board, and member of the City of Turlock Oversight Board. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me, Carmen.
I really appreciate you taking the time out to be with us here today. I know how busy you are, running the 2nd District and chairing so many committees as you do. I really appreciate you also attending so many of our events. Supervisor Chiesa, you were recently at the flag-raising ceremony in Turlock to welcome the new Assyrian year, 6,768.
That's amazing.
Isn't that amazing?
That's amazing.
We always enjoy your support when it comes to our community, and you know, the premise of this program is civic engagement. We think it's really important for not only the 35,000 or so Assyrians who live in Stanislaus County, but for all of our viewers who call the United States and every state and county that they live in their new home, to really step up and own their citizenship and engage in their community and give back to a community that has embraced them so well. So let's talk about what makes Stanislaus County so special, that why we have such a large community that lives in this beautiful agricultural land, and of course the county says striving to be the best. So tell us a little bit, and our viewers, about Stanislaus County.
Well, Stanislaus County is right in the heart of the middle of California in agricultural land, as you had talked about. We're very ag-driven. 8 of our 10 largest major manufacturing employers are ag-based. So it's going to be what drives our community into the near future. I will also tell you that Stanislaus County, as well as my district, is a very welcoming area. We are a melting pot of California. And if I told you, if I picked all of California, probably the greatest melting pot is in the Central Valley area, San Joaquin Valley. Many different immigrant countries are represented, religions are represented, and so I think that has actually made us stronger. That's why we are a great community. I know we've also talked in the past. I am the son of an immigrant who came through Ellis Island, came across the ocean through Ellis Island and settled here for many of the same reasons as the Assyrian community. He had some ag roots, but I just feel so lucky to represent this area and the great people that we have here.
You know, you're absolutely right. We always talk about our roots, and I do appreciate you sharing your story with us. I think it touches people. It brings it home to our story and our community as well. You were present in 2016 at the Assyrian Festival when we honored Hank Adams.
Hank, yep.
The late Hank Adams, the son of the first Assyrian settler of the Reverend Dr. Adams. And we talk about the importance of preserving heritage, of preserving our way of life, but also it's important to acculturate and become good American citizens and really own this citizenship. And one of the things that we try to do, Supervisor Chiesa, is to bridge that gap between members of a community, especially immigrant communities, with elected officials to understand a little bit more about city, county, and state government, federal government, and of course we have a very good working relationship with our Congressman Jeff Denham, our Assembly Member Heath Flora. They've both been on this program, and our mayor in the city of Turlock, Mayor Soyset. So we need to know a little bit more about what the role of the county is and our county government, and having a budget of $1.1 billion, allocating the funds to the 25 different departments, for example, and land use and zoning, and we have our challenges being the size that this county is. What do you see as a vision for Stanislaus County? What are the challenges that you tackle with the Board of Supervisors?
Okay, so you lost $200 million. Our budget is now $1.3 billion.
Oh, okay, it's grown.
It's something, yeah, and the vast majority. So when people think that we have control over the $1.3 billion, that's not necessarily true. A lot of that money, the counties are a subdivision of the state of California. Mm-hmm. So we provide services that come through the federal and the state government. You might know it as the CalFresh program, WIC program, some of the mental health services. It's a lot of pass-through money. About 20% of our money, 25% of our money is true discretionary spending that operate a lot of the law enforcement components. The Sheriff's Department, our jails, public defender, the district attorney's office take the lion's share, and libraries and parks, and the list goes on and on. It's a great job. It's an interesting job, but I can tell you 10 years into it, I'm still learning every day. So I surely won't have all the answers, Carmen.
Well, it is a learning process. It is something that, there's always new issues coming up. There's, as a decision maker, as a policy maker within your capacity, let's talk about, for example, the focus on prevention. Okay. Homelessness is not just a Stanislaus County issue. It is statewide. Our state of California really struggles with members of our community who experience homelessness. Yeah. And it has different levels of what we know and how we define homelessness is. There's always the mental health component. There is the substance abuse component. And I know our county started this initiative that was started about 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah. In fact, we interviewed our former CEO, Stan Risen, and Mr. Ruben Imperial. So it's a proactive measure that we take to make sure that there's a quality of life for all members of the community. And those who experience homelessness are a part of our community. So where are we with that focus on prevention within the county?
As you acknowledged, our former CEO, Stan Risen, was instrumental in getting this started. Supervisor Terry Withrow has been very engaged. And we're looking at this as treating, before we would treat the symptoms, not the disease always. So we're looking at a generational change, and homelessness is one of those. I will also tell you, and again, I don't state this as my opinion, but as fact, government does not fix problems. It's the community that fixes problems together. We're partners in it. We convene, we have financial resources to help, but it's really the focus on prevention. We've tried to change the paradigm, and there's 12 different segments of society. There's a couple of people appointed from each of those segments, whether it's arts and entertainment or law enforcement, but we're giving them the tools to come up with what they think will work to change the paradigm on a go-forward basis. How are we going to create a better, more sustainable community? We started with homelessness. It is very apparent, you have talked about it is an epidemic literally in the state of California. Mm-hmm. It's no different here. When we look at the city of Modesto, at the point in time count when we counted the homeless, 74% of the homeless are in the city of Modesto. So that's why we're concentrating first in this area, and then we hope to expand to Turlock, that has about 15% of the homelessness. But they're about 15% of the population, whereas Modesto is only 40% of the population with 74%. We believe the reason is that this is where services are provided. There's a couple of homeless shelters, and so that's a good place to start. One of those might include the low barrier shelter, which has really been an obstacle to some of the people actually finding homes, that includes pets, partners, and possessions. So that's what the statement is. It's a lower barrier than getting into the other ones. If someone has a partner, obviously they don't want to be split up. They want to stay with them. So there's been disincentives. That's one of the focuses. And then it's about treatment. So you talked about the co-occurring disorders. Mental health is very prevalent, and drug and alcohol abuse, we call that co-occurring disorders. Now we're trying to embed in these shelter areas where people can get mental health services without going to, leaving this town and going somewhere else or to a different building. They can get their services, they can sign up for CalFresh so that they have some method, then they can find some transitional housing, get some job skills, because that's always a shortcoming. And a lot of these people have come out of incarceration that are homeless, and they feel like there's no path for them to become a productive member of society. It's easier just to stay homeless, and we're trying to change that.
There are so many different components of what you just described so beautifully. There is mental health issues, there is substance abuse issues, there is also the recidivism, but the alignment did not help. What happened with the homelessness issue. We call it hopelessness, but that's the whole idea, is to make sure that those individuals have access to resources. And I do know that this initiative has different tiers to it. It has to do with strengthening families, reducing recidivism, working with local schools, and reaching the youth at an age proactively before they start to do things in the community. And it includes mentorship, it includes different programs. We have to include the fact of the cannabis, the bill. Regardless of how one feels about it, Supervisor Chiesa, the people of California have spoken, and there is regulation to be had. There's different elements of zoning and land use, and please share with our viewers where Stanislaus County stands in this. And I know it's new, there's going to be changes made, but let's say I would like to start a cultivation business in Stanislaus County. What are my chances, and how many permits are going to be allowed?
Okay, and this was a blank slate. And just for your audience, I didn't vote for the legalization of recreational use. I understand the compassionate use, the medical side, but I didn't. But the voters have spoken. So in
the law.
That's right. In my capacity is to implement it in the best way I can. So the Board of Supervisors, and with myself as the lead, we looked at what we thought would be a conservative strategy going forward. It was about $3 million to have a complete ban, to enforce a complete ban, and about $4 million to regulate and tax, essentially regulate and tax. And so there was an opportunity to take some of the money from the allowance strategy to do what we consider the most important component, and that's enforce the illegal operations. And so where the county is right now today, we're allowing 61 total permits, but of that, only 7 of them are storefronts. It's retail sales. And the rest of them will be either in manufacturing, testing, or in grows. We do not allow, and there's not a city or the county unincorporated area that is allowing outdoor grows. You're allowed a small indoor grow if you're permitted to do so, not through our process, but through the state of California. But ours, you can go up to 22,000 square feet of growing. And we are right now in the process. We had about 200 applicants. We opened it up. We closed it. We had more than 200, and then they checked more than one box. Essentially, they want to grow, they want to retail, they want a testing facility. So now we've whittled it down through a couple of processes, and we're doing background checks. There's 35 people as of today, 35 people still in the pool. requesting about 75 total permits. We still have to get that down to 61 total permits. If you pass a background check, then we'll do inspections, we'll do site visits, they'll do interviews, and they're going to shorten that list down to where it's manageable. And if it's a successful program, and success will be defined in different ways, but it probably will take a couple of years to see how the market is and how we're able to control it, because really it's about getting the illegal subterfuge out of what is the drug business, the illegal drug trade. And alcohol was able to overcome that, obviously from the 30s after Prohibition, and it's highly regulated in the state of California, and we hope to have a highly regulated marijuana industry, cannabis industry a couple of years from now.
I know there's a percentage of this proposition that will be helping in prevention programs for the youth. So regardless of how this works out, there is still the law enforcement component. There is the DUIs, and it's a different kind of a system than with alcoholism. So this is something that when we talked about with our district attorney and our law enforcement officials, they have a different view, but as a decision maker and as a policy maker, Supervisor Chiesa, what do you see as far as, is Stanislaus County going to be somewhere where people will come and say, well, that's where we want to be, that's where this is happening, compared to other counties?
So in the Central Valley, we probably are ahead of the curve. Stanislaus County is out of the 8 valley counties, but in the state of California, I would say we're about on par. Obviously, Alameda County's ahead, San Francisco's ahead. They're the areas that were more progressive, I guess I could say. So, but I think even though the sheriff and the district attorney, I'm sure that they don't like our strategy, the board feels that it's a solid strategy going forward. If the folks hadn't voted for it, I would be sitting here having a different conversation with you, Carmen. But when the voters speak, it's not my job to sit and second guess them. It's to implement something that I think can be effective. And do I think there's long-term ramifications? There probably are, and not all good for society. But I'm hoping, again, just like a well-regulated alcohol industry, I hope we have the same thing. You had talked about the state's component and how they're handling it. I question, they have a 15% tax that overlays it. I would tell you that was too much. The state will not give us 15% worth. There are some important components they must do, and you talked about it coming up with DUI tests or under the influence and other things. But for that money to trickle through, everything the state does, the federal government does, they take a portion before it comes down to the local level. And again, we're the ones having to implement on the ground. And it would be better to have a higher tax locally and less of a tax to the state rather than vice versa, the way it's going to happen or the way it is happening. They're going to see taxes much lower on the local level, which will pay for those drug and alcohol services, which will pay for the enforcement component from our law enforcement, will pay for the prosecution. It'll be much more difficult at the local level than it will be at the state level, and they won't be providing those services.
I see. That is something that we'll just have to wait and see to see how it goes through with, of course, our new sheriff. We'll have a new sheriff. So let's talk about you. Let's talk about...
I'm embarrassed already. Right?
Well, no, I mean, the whole idea is to get to know who our representatives are, to understand you and your values. And let's talk about you. You grew up in Houston. You, as you had shared with us, you are a son of an immigrant, and you are in the agriculture business. And this is what really is our bread and basket, as we say, of the Central Valley. What do you see as far as your vision for the county being in the position that you have been? Is this something that will keep our new generation? Can we keep them here for the new technology and the agriculture business?
And that's a great conversation, because we've struggled on the educational attainment side, obviously, versus, say, Silicon Valley or the Santa Clara area, Marin, some of those other areas. But we're catching up. So we're doing a better job of workforce training, trying to keep our kids local. We're doing better. We're still not doing as good of a job as we could. I think our economy is diversifying slowly. We're in an urban, we used to be rural, now we're in an urban-rural kind of transition area. But ag, as long as I'm alive, will still be the driver, as I talked about our economy. We have to work so hard, and we have CSU Stanislaus, higher education, college for those of you who aren't from the U.S. watching. But it is going to be the game changer. UC Merced, another higher learning institution, is going to be the difference makers. But not everyone is prepared for college. Not everyone is going to college. So we need vocational training. We've gotten away from that in high school, your welding type class, your framing, people that build houses, plumbing, things that are very important and actually pay really well, but we're starting to lose that, and it's incumbent upon us to make sure that the junior college, our community colleges are presenting those types of things, and we can fund through our Alliance WorkNet some of that job training. It is, I'm as concerned as you, but I'm also as hopeful because I see things getting better, again, incrementally, but they are getting better here. And my kids, you know, we talk about my dad to myself, but my children, I have two of them, and neither one of them want to farm. And I often ask myself, you know, it's an honorable profession. It's afforded us, you know, a decent life, and yet they see that it's hard work, but they're hard workers in what they do. And so, anyways, it's a real dichotomy in my mind because I see things getting better, and I hope to retain our youth in this area because that's really where our strength is going to be, not always with people coming in, but bringing those people up that have the value of our community.
Absolutely, and loving where you grow up and to be able to have a job where you grew up and when you live, that's the trick. To make it attractive, to have higher paying jobs, for example, for our youth, so they don't commute. And you know, my husband grew up in Turlock, and he got his education where you did, San Luis Obispo. But he came back here because this is where we raise our families. It's the small towns. It's not so small anymore, but it is that quality of life issues. It's living in a community that everyone knows each other, they're comfortable with each other than being lost in a big city, for example. So let me talk to you about Turlock. You had attended our festivals in Turlock, and you're familiar with the pride and resilience of the Assyrian community, and we talked about what kind of activities, what kind of contribution do you recommend that the youth coming up can do to be, for example, my question to you was, what prompted you to run for office, for example, to be involved into where you are? And someone watching us today, for example, they can say, I really like what Supervisor Chiesa is saying. I like to hear about his background and education. How can we provide that mentorship for our youth to be involved in government, to be involved in community and give back and just follow your footsteps?
Wow. First of all, I have to say that I know I've said this to you privately, how jealous I am of your community and the way they've held their heritage together. When you go to the festival, the traditional dress and attire and the traditional dance and the traditional instruments and the family harmony, there's a real dedication to family, which is being lost. And I think I've said that my dad didn't speak Italian to us. I didn't learn it. I speak Spanish much better. But you've carried on the traditional language, teaching people. Whether you acclimate or not, it's still good to have those values because they're values that brought you here to America to be so successful. So having said that, now we talk about, you know, background and things that I've done. And if you'd asked me 20 years ago, are you going to be on the board of supervisors? I would tell you no. I was so ag-based. I was involved in the Crops Club in college, a lot of ag-based leadership type situation. I was on the Farm Bureau board, and then I went to the State Farm Bureau. It was doing those things as, again, a volunteer for organizations to try and make my industry better that led me to the, you know, what I seemed to be good at, or people thought I was good at, and that was trying to convince legislators to lobby on behalf of our industry. And that's what piqued my interest into politics. I live outside of the city limits, so city councils were never an option. And so the Board of Supervisors is the city council per se of the whole county, but it governs my life like the city council does in a city. And that's what finally led me to believe it was about land use issues that were affecting my livelihood and the greater good of the ag industry. That people thought, luckily people think, and every 4 years they decide how good of a job you're doing. But it led me to run for the Board of Supervisors. But it was all the volunteering. I come back to the volunteer opportunities about what you owe your community. You know, the schools were built before, you know, the kids went to school, right? Someone paid for that. Someone afforded them that opportunity. The colleges were built before I started paying taxes. So I have an obligation to help out my community to make it better. And that could be as simple as helping pick up garbage on Love Turlock Day, or they can be really simple acts, but that's what makes a community strong, is people coming together, watching out for your neighbors, making sure that if they need help mowing their lawn, something simple, a simple act of kindness, that's what makes a great community, and that's what makes Turlock so strong.
Beautifully put. I totally agree with you. Let's take a quick break and come back with Supervisor Chiesa.
بعينات بغزايخ شبرة بريتا وأمانوتا وخلقت سيارة بهيارتت عيناتن باليابخ بقرايخ وبكتابخ أنا نقايوتا كخامتت عيناتوخون سلامت بيش نزريز تهار ماشين بريشة كسخصتت عيناتوخون إن ماشين إينا رابة تكنيكاية بخادرقا اللايا تبقون بي أسيا جون مايكل أوون اتلخان سيانا رابا إرويخا جدا جخلا سخصتت عيناتا سخصتا سلاماتويتا وخامتت بارد عيناتوخون ماسيتون سابيتون لجودت أسيا جون مايكل جو ريتنا انستيتوت أوف إلينوي أسيا جون مايكل اتل سب سبيشالتي جو ريتنا وكامس غير قداني كأتلون مرض شاكر يان diabetic retinopathy, retinal detachment, macular degeneration, and complications of cataract surgery. Jumendit Chicago Grimon Alminiana telephone Shavamo Shovitla Shavamo 20 Arpa Ichi Arpa Sipar Sipar. Jumendit Niles Grimon Alminiana telephone Tmeniamo Arpi Shava Tremo Ichi Shava 20 Ucha Sipar Sipar.
We all have that one person we call, no matter what the situation or event. Who do you call when you've had a stressful day at work? When you get the news that you're having your first child, or that you landed your dream job? Now, what if you or a loved one have been injured and need advice? Who do you call? Think about it.
قبوش مطانياته وبقارة قاعبي لوخون ماسيتون قاريتون علمنيانة تلمو تريسر وتجمو اسري اتشا كلايت منيا سي بارشافا توني اسكالاغراكوس and the associates ماسي هايريلان بيليشانا آتورايا.
Have you tried to get rid of that unwanted stubborn fat with diet and exercise, but it just won't go away? Is that stubborn fat spoiling your weight loss efforts or ruining your physique? Introducing Sculpture, a laser-based system that removes fat without surgery so you can enjoy a slimmer, trimmer figure. Sculpture allows you to remove fat from specific areas of your body like the belly, back, waist, and thighs. Sculpture removes slices of fat layer depending on a number of treatment sessions. Sculpture is a cosmetic procedure that is non-invasive and doesn't require incisions or surgery. Each session is 25 minutes long. It uses patented laser heat technology to target only fat layers underneath the skin, breaking down the walls of the fat cells and liquefying them so your body can carry the debris away over the course of 6 to 12 weeks. Dr. Fatima Pazuki is an experienced provider of sculpture treatments for patients in and around Turlock, California. Dr. Pazuki helps patients achieve the results they're seeking with individualized consultations and treatment plans. Call us at 209-216-3570 or book an appointment online.
Thomas Auto Sales Gumantica, California. Qashavasar Shinne, Thomas Auto Sales, Itlanisiana Guzabentit Atmobile, Gumditit Mantica, California. Gu Thomas Auto Sales, Kipelchi Raba Qishye, قميات خادوتا غزونانا قد بالت خديا بأوتوموبيل خاتي ين مبلخ بخاتي رابا مرديانا Thomas Auto Sales كم سخيرخ لكم بفاينانسينج وشغلت لونز ميقرأ كمال توماس مارد توماس Auto Sales مقروب اللي غيكوت زوناندنا بديابل $10 ديسكاونت مال ليست برايس أدرس دي ان إيلا 8 إيست يوسيميتي أفنيو جمديتد مانتيكا كاليفورنيا كم سيتون قاريتون لن آل 3 سيبر أجا 3 لا أجا سيبر
We are back with Supervisor Vito Chiesa. We were talking during the break about the importance of making a difference, of being involved and active. I always encourage members of the community to apply on boards and commissions, and basically to show up and learn how our government works. Each committee and board and commission does its own thing, obviously. And you shared a story with us of how important it is to really understand how and why and the way things are being done and who benefits from them. And it's really a way of learning rather than complaining. I imagine most elected officials hear from their constituents when they're angry. When something's wrong, right? Well, why not try to either do an internship or volunteer to learn how the system works and see how we can contribute and how much better we understand it. So in closing, I'd like to ask you, Supervisor Chiesa, being in the position that you are, understanding your constituents, especially our community. You have been so kind to always attend when I request, and I know how busy you are with your assistant, Sandra. You always attend, even if you're not feeling well. I know you've attended when you're sick. When you've had multiple occasions, with the 70th anniversary, you were getting an award, you still showed up at the end of the night. And it's important for us to know that. It's important, every 4 years you get reelected, but for us as constituents, it's important for us to have that connection. So in closing, I'd like to ask you, Supervisor, to share with our viewers what this position means to you and what message you have for those who live in your district. And like I said, for someone watching you tonight, what can they learn from you and your experience?
Well, information is always king, and be informed. And to get involved, just about in any capacity on the Board of Supervisors, I think we appoint to probably about 25 boards and commissions. And so there's always an opportunity to get involved. You look through and you find something that piques your interest, and then you start attending those meetings. I will tell you that in my position, I have about 14 board assignments beyond the Board of Supervisors. I don't have to go to the Turlock City Council meetings, I don't have to go to Houston City Council meetings, I don't have to go to Fire Board meetings, but I do. And it's because I want to be informed as to what's happening in my community. If I'm going to be a leader in this community, if I see myself as a leader, then I'm going to have to act like that by attending and finding out what's going on so I can make informed decisions. But nothing should stop you. I have an advantage being elected officials to go to those, but nothing should stop anyone from going to those meetings and getting involved. I look at, we have an internship program here at Stanislaus County where we're taking students from Stanislaus State, mentoring them. It's a small paid internship, but Peter Aisha from the Assyrian community,
That's
but
right.
He is a great graduate who's now a full-time employee because he took advantage of that opportunity to probably work for minimum wage for a short time. Nothing is holding you back but yourself. I'm telling you, if you want to get engaged, you can find me. You can talk to the mayors of any one of your communities. They would be more than happy to take you out, take you under their wing, and show you the opportunities that are out there, especially for our young people. And we keep talking about keeping the young people in our community. If they're not engaged, if we don't engage them, if Carmen, if you and I don't try and get them engaged, then we will lose them to other communities. So I feel like it's as much my responsibility as it is theirs to get them involved.
I appreciate that. Supervisor Chiesa, thank you so much for giving your time today to have this interview with us. I'd like to thank you for doing such a great job, for always being on top of the issues, for really giving it your all when it comes to making decisions on our behalf. For those who aren't familiar or haven't attended Board of Supervisors meeting, I do suggest you can read them online, the agenda and the minutes, and to really see all the work that is involved with all the decisions and all the committees and hearings that you attend. So thank you for all you do.
You bet. And if they ever want to watch the meetings, it's on stancounty.com, 9 a.m. or 6:30 p.m. depending on the week of the month. But thank you very much. I'm always honored to be invited to your events. And Carmen, you've been too good to me. I always say that, really including me in many of the events that you have.
Thank you. The pleasure and the honor is ours, and thank you for continuing to represent us in our district. And this concludes our interview with Supervisor Chiesa from Stanislaus County with the 2nd District.